Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Course in Drones and Development. And today we are going to be talking about the cargo drones. And the cargo drones have played an amazing role in the medical field. So the medical cargo deliveries are now happening in many countries. One of the organizations which has played a major role in this is VillageReach. So today we have Olivier Defawe from VillageReach who will be sharing his experiences and knowledge with us. So, welcome, Olivier.
Thank you, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank you for inviting me again this year to the advanced course in drone and development. This is a real honor for me to be here to represent VillageReach and to make sure that all the learning that we have gained over the last 6+ years in the drone delivery space is shared. Because one of the key objective and strategic objective of VillageReach is really to share knowledge with others to advance, accelerate a space, and in this case, the drone delivery space. Maybe just a couple words around who we are. So VillageReach is a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization, not-for-profit, that has been working for the past 20 years to improve the way health products such as vaccine, medicine, laboratory samples are transported in low and middle income countries where we work. At VillageReach, we really aspire to a world where every individual on Earth has access to the healthcare services she and he deserves to thrive. Started by a diaspora member working in the telecommunication sector here in Seattle, where I'm sitting back 20 years ago, the first challenge that we took on was designing, implementing, and scaling a new supply chain model that got vaccines and other products to children in extremely rural and hard-to-reach area in Mozambique. From there, we have expanded into a broader mandate around supporting the systems that deliver medicine, supply, vaccine, information to the most unreached. VillageReach is made of professionals with extensive expertise in supply chains, health worker development, digital health technology, and data analytics. This competency all developed out of our strong belief that the systems that deliver must include not just the supply side, but also the data and the system that drive demand. As of today, VillageReach has conducted 7 drone delivery projects in 5 different countries, and 3 of them are currently active. These operations not only allow us and the governments to gain experience with the drone technology, but they also help generate hard evidence and data on the benefits on the supply chain performance and cost and health of the different community we reach. These last 5+ years were mixed with successes, like in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the first drone-supported vaccination session in West and Central Africa, but also setbacks. But at the end, that experience made VillageReach one of the most know-how partners in the drone delivery space and is allowing us to lead the way on the international stage. Since you are here taking this course, I don't think I have to spend too much time on explaining, convincing you of the potential value added of drone into supply chain and into public and supply chain. Drone have the potential to have a high impact on particular supply chain challenges, especially at and for hard to reach area, when used as a complementary mode of transportation methodology in an existing supply chain. Drone may not solve all supply chain challenge. The value is most reached as a complementary transportation method with an existing supply chain rather than creating a parallel supply chain. When considering supply chain design, drone have an amazing potential to reduce, of course, transportation time and optimize last mile delivery. For example, as immunization product volumes are relatively small, you must ensure that you consider integrating deliveries with other non-immunization commodities, for example, to increase the cost efficiency of the drone transport. A drone is just a mode of transportation. It is not made specifically for one type of product. It's agnostic to the product. Drone has also the potential to increase, for example, immunization utilization by bringing product closer to the facility on a more reliable schedules. And therefore, why? Because by increasing the reliability of the services, the community will gain trust into the system. Health worker efficiency is an area that also shows huge potential benefits. By directly delivering drone to the facility, health worker can spend less time on logistics or fetching commodities and more time serving their communities. Drone has also provide a potential means of communication for facilities with limited phone services, for example. Health worker can send via drone requisition, data collection forms more quickly, optimizing than the stock level, for example. Finally, drone can be a much faster mean for stock replenishment in emergency delivery. But it's really important to keep in mind that drone is still, while drone is still a frontier technology, similar to how trucks and manned airplane transportation was over about 70 years ago. Drone is a system with all the subsystem elements. And let's make the analogy, for example, in the 40s, when the trucks were introduced to transport product in hard-to-reach area, well, at that time, the technology was not reliable. People knew very little around how to operate the trucks, how to maintain the trucks, really low understanding of how to the true cost of operating, the safety, they were using truck, there was a lot of accidents, there's no system regulation that regulate the use of the trucks and so on and so on. So, but now I think we can say that the use of truck in most of part of the world is pretty well known. All the subsystems are in place. Well, the analogy is that drone delivery is very at the early stage where truck were before, like 70, 80 years ago. And having a drone on itself does not give what you are looking for, including a delivery network. Drone delivery requires a complex ecosystem to be in place to operate safely, reliably, and in a cost-effective way. From the obvious, you need a safe and reliable technology. You need the right regulatory environment and infrastructure. But maybe less obvious, you also need to address any community's concern how to operationally integrate drone delivery into an existing supply chain. You need to figure out what business model would make it cost effective for your business. Should you outsource the service to a three-party logistics, or should you build service in-house, or anything in between? That is what VillageReach has been doing for the last 5+ years. We are working with experts from these different system elements, from regulators, technology experts, transportation experts, community leaders, even academic institutions. And we are shaping the ecosystem to make drone delivery a reality in Africa and in other parts of the world. We define the path to sustainability and commercial growth. And let's not forget, we are doing this in the context of extreme logistics, in an environment where traditional supply chain systems would underperform, stall, or even break down. I think it's fair to say that the COVID-19 pandemic stands to change the way people worldwide live and position the world for a great reset as vaccination development and distribution proceed and economy begins to reopen. Now, more than ever, regulations are being adjusted to improve fast-track authorization for promising use cases. It's important to predict the long-term impact of this development, but one thing is certain. The pandemic has helped countries around the world imagine the potential that drones hold for society. I want to spend a few minutes to really explain the effect of that more complex ecosystem. And I want to do a little comparison between the use of drone for mapping or even for spraying for vector control, for example, versus the use of drone for delivery. In most of the case, when you use drone for inspection, mapping an area, it's usually around in the context of visual line of sight, right? Drone delivery, you're gonna go beyond visual line of sight most of the time, if not all the time. So it's more risky, needs for more regulations. With a drone delivery, usually you have multiple takeoff and landing sites. You take off in one place and you land in another one, and then you can maybe leave from there coming back. While, when you do mapping, you take off from one place and you come back usually at the same place. Usually when you do mapping, one pilot. It's basically about the only thing you need, then you need data analysts to do the analysis of the imaging, but really from the operation standpoint, just one pilot. For delivery, you need pilot, operation personnel, delivery the person at the end receiving. So there's way more involvement of human resources for operating a drone delivery system. Usually when you do mapping, the manned airspace integration is sometimes required, but often not required because of the confined area where you'll be operating. While drone delivery, because you go beyond visual line of sight, longer distance, it's required an integration with a complex manned airspace. Usually, the technology for mapping of the drone is pretty low tech, cheaper, as opposed to drone delivery. And the business case clearer, we're still figuring out the business case for drone delivery. So all this, is the result of the more complex ecosystem associated with drone delivery, with its effect. Long lead time for approval, more training, infrastructure, community engagement, because you are going to go, and I'm going to speak about that. When you go from point A to point B, you go over communities potentially, because a longer distance, even those communities who are actually not directly benefiting from the delivery or interacting with the drone have to be sensitized. More skilled staff in training. Operator need more comprehensive aviation experience in the context of integrating, because drone is entering the main airspace. More expensive and more evidence generated required to really define the business model. All these are direct effect of this more complex ecosystem that needs to be in place for drone delivery to operate safely, reliably, and sustainably. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. What do you have to plan for when you plan a drone delivery operation? But before I go in again in the detail, just make sure that we are talking about the same thing. Different technology will be appropriate for different use cases. This is, a very simple way to divide those three different general use cases: the last mile delivery, the middle mile delivery, and the first mile delivery. Last mile delivery, it's really, between, you will go from a subnational warehouse, for example, to really a service delivery level, very to the last mile, where the service, in this case, the health services will be operating. And that usually required shorter range and small to medium payload technology, which is very different if you are targeting the middle mile, which would require longer range and heavier payload, and therefore the technology is much different. And the picture is purely an example of a drone for the last mile delivery, like Super, versus a drone for the middle mile delivery, the Elroy Air. They're both VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, but you see the different scale we're talking about here. And then at the other, and continuing going extreme, with bigger, the heavy cargo payload for first mile delivery and cross borders, we're talking about a different set of technology. I am going to spend most of my time talking about the first and the second, the last mile delivery, which is most of what we're doing, but we are now also doing some middle mile delivery associated with different technology. And even for the last mile delivery, so even if it's the first, there is many different models. I'm sure you are pretty aware of those different models, with pro and cons, with the characteristics that is summarized here. By the way, all those slides will be available afterwards. So I just want to make sure that we are understanding each other, that I'm going to be talking about the process, the tools, the approach for developing and implementing a drone delivery project for the last mile, middle mile, using the appropriate, those kind of drone technology. And I want to say that everything I'm going to be presenting is, we have documented our lesson learned, we have documented our process, we have documented the tools that we used into the toolkit for generating evidence around the use of unmanned aircraft system for medical community delivery. which is available in the UpDoc website, on the UpDoc website, UpDoc, www at updwg, so UAV for Payload Delivery Working Group.org. And everything that is in this toolkit and the approach that we use is all centered into the more general approach of human-centered design. So, if you are considering a drone delivery project, I don't know what stage you are, but this is a framework that we have been using and promoting at the global, international level to try to help stakeholders understand what are the purpose and what does it entail, just to make sure that we are on phase in terms of expectations. Usually, it starts with a demonstration. Usually, if you go to an environment, a region, a country, a region, a sub-region that is not familiar with drone, this different stakeholder, you're talking about government stakeholders, potential private sector partner, will benefit from a demonstration, which is usually pretty small. You're usually not even sure about the actual use cases and how the drone will be integrated into a system, a supply chain system in this case. So that's usually what people, bring a drone to really explain to them what is a drone, what you're thinking about doing, but nothing is really well established. Then you go to a phase one, a true phase one, which is the purpose of this phase one is really to demonstrate the safety and the feasibility of using the drone technology for a purpose. Usually it's about 1 or 2 weeks of flight at most. And there are a lot of those that happen around the world, lots of those. And by the way, if you want to know what has been happening and where, what phase, what are the flight data, what have they done, I recommend that you check out the Medical Drone Delivery Database, MD3, on the UpDub website. It's a database that is growing and growing, where it provides information that we were able to gathered from all the different implementation for the different phase, by the way. The phase one, usually there's a lot of those phase one. And I would say that in the drone delivery space in general, those phase one are now disappearing a little bit, or like they're being pulled into phase one, phase two, because this has been shown many times that the drone technology is really improving, that the feasibility, the safety is really improving. But the phase one, and usually you have here a total project cost based on the 7 different projects that we implemented. All these go incremental. The phase two, called routine use and evaluation. Usually it's the purpose, it's really to generate the evidence, generate the data on the impact of drone, on the performance of your supply chain, the cost efficiency, and potentially some health impact. Because this has to be done to gather that evidence. The operations has to sustain to really understand and generate how much the data around how much does it really cost to operate routinely an integrated drone service delivery and its impact. You cannot measure that during a week or two. You do a lot of estimation But hard evidence, hard data, that kind of hard data can only be produced as you use drone in a routine, ongoing way. So that's why we minimum 6 months, even 6 months, you won't be able to measure health impact, true health impact. You may have data on proxy data, you have proxy data using those proxy indicators, but not this hard data. And then you have phase 3, which is really starting to really scale up nationally, bigger scale to increase the impact. I want to say that in that, here the UAV, US Evidence Generation Toolkit, not only there's the methodology, but there's a lot of tools. One of the key tools that's out there is around the monitoring and the evaluation of your operation. You want to make sure that you are going to gather the right data to answer the right questions. So for each of these phases, mainly phase 1, phase 2 is being developed right now. There's some data, but we are developing those. There you will find indicators. Indicators around the management, to measure management performance, to measure indicator around operation, indicator around health, to measure health impact, and so on, which is those indicators that we highly recommend when you develop a project and you implement a project. You really look at those indicators because those are the ones that will help answer key questions. So all those indicators, and I'm going to present some of those, are also in the evidence generation toolkit. So I'm going to illustrate how our methodology, the tools, through the work that we've been conducting in Democratic Republic of Congo, where our journey really started in 2019. Our journey around the use of drone. We've been working in Congo for the last six plus years now. In 2019, around supply chain. And the story is that we've been working there, like I said, for about 6 years. And up until 2019, we did a lot of supply chain optimization using modelization, big methodology, but also light touch tool, using light touch tools, capacity development. We did digitalization and so on. And we had a real good impact, but we could see that there is still those pockets of communities for which we were really struggling helping the government ensure the availability of quality product. And that's where we decided, let's see if drone could be integrated into the public health supply chain of the country, but only to serve those hard to reach area. We didn't want to change what was working. We only wanted to integrate drone to serve those pocket of region that we were struggling with for various reasons. And so we did a phase 1 in 2019. And what does that entail? It took us about a year. First of all, it took us a year from beginning to the end. And again, you remember, this is an ecosystem that you have to put into place with its governance, with subsystem around the aviation, the health regulation, the technology, the acceptability, and so on. And so a couple examples of what we've done for the governance. Well, we in partnership with the civil aviation and the different Ministry of Health, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Transport, we developed a National Drone Health Commission, which regroups stakeholders from those different agencies. And we did that at the national level, as well as the provincial level where we work. And the role is really to provide oversight of that project. And guidance around that project in awareness. And that National Provincial Drone Health Commission is actually now recognized by ministers and the president as a commission that oversee any drone project that is taking place in Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's also a way for the government to oversee all drone projects and really leverage experience from one project to another and making connection. All the authorities were involved really with the progression of all the project from the very, very beginning. Because drone is a multi-sectorial application and tool, it's really important that you, if it's a health, even if your project is a health centered, you have to deal with the other agency, other ministry, the defense, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Telecommunication, and so on, whatever it's appropriate in your environment. We've conducted a lot of actually learning visits of the civil aviations and some key stakeholder in other countries where we operate, or where others are operating and more advanced than us, to show them what it could look like in their own country. We also used in our roadmap key decision point with go and no-go criteria to move from a phase 0 to phase 1 to phase 2 and so on. So that gives the authorities, the different agencies, the sense of we are deciding when this project goes from phase 1 to 2. We are, by providing that oversight, we decide when we feel it's right. You have demonstrated and reached the objective from that was pre-established, and that's ready to move on to phase 2, for example. Around the aviation, we worked every day, hands in hands with the civil aviation to develop that regulatory environment. They're not necessarily aware of all the different resources that is available for them as a civil aviation to use to develop their own drone use regulation, drone regulation. We actually invited them and supported them to go to the African Drone Forum, for example, or to other international meetings where other civil aviation authorities from other countries came together to learn from each other. It's not part of our project, really, but we did it because it's a journey that we decided to do together, and we want all the project to benefit beyond that project. We think at a system level. We want to develop a system in that country. All the flights that we do, the flight route has to be approved. We directly coordinate not only with the national civil aviation, but also with the air traffic control where the flight will be happening. We have developed emergency and communication protocols. All this is again available in the toolkit, and standard procedures with the health authorities. Keep in mind that, again, drone is just a mode of transportation. You want to disturb the least their system, you want to disturb the least their workflow, the workflow of the health worker and the data flow. So you have to develop your procedure that is building on what they are currently doing and either strengthening what they're doing or adapting. You want to make sure that you disturb them the least, and you want those standard operating procedure to be really acknowledged, approved by the health authorities using the standard as well. Like, for example, to transport biomedical hazard material, such as laboratory sample, such as blood, you have to use those WHO pre-approved containers. So you adapt your mode of transportation to the existing protocol, the existing procedures, because that is what is the standard. So you want to make sure that by integrate, you have to adapt to the standard that they use. Acceptability. Before every demonstration operation, you have to work with your community, directly with your community, with the community leaders, to really, what we do with a methodology again, where we first do a perception study with a lot of interviews at the national level, at the provincial level, at the community level, health workers, but also communities. And the outcome, and again, we have interviews, questionnaires, and so on that we can share. What's come out of those interviews, that's perception study, and form your community sensitization strategy and your communication campaign. That way, it's tailored. So your activity around sensitization and communication strategy are tailored based on true perception of drone in the environment where you work. And you do that before, but it's not a one-time thing that you do. You do that on an ongoing basis. It's not something that you do once, okay, we're done, we did that, we know how they perceived it, it's done. The perception will evolve. Therefore, your communication will evolve. The content of your communication, your strategy of communicating with the community will evolve. Incident happen. You have to communicate, you have to sensitize, you have to work with community. Incident will happen. And it's by involving the community from the very beginning and on the ongoing basis that you will gain that trust. Technology, it's evident you have to select the drone that is the most appropriate for your use case. There is a tool that we developed where it's walked through the different steps, the different type of questions that you have to ask to make sure you're going to be selecting the right drone technology for the purpose. And you have to, in that drone technology, you have to involve the national stakeholder, again, the committee at the national and the provincial level. You have to involve them throughout the process so they also learn from it. They learn, and you're contributing by building that enabling environment beyond your own project. Those are a couple tools that's available. One was produced a few years ago by USAID around unmanned aerial vehicle procurement guide. And we also produce a more practical, pragmatic how to select a drone service provider for transported health products, really based on experience and a little more practical. And still during this phase one, remember, the purpose of phase one is to demonstrate the safety and feasibility. Well, because we've done all this, well, we were able in 5 days to perform 50 flights traveling over 2,000 kilometers. You have the map out there. Round trip, decreasing a 3-hour journey that the current, the current drone, the current health workers and logistician from the public health service were taking 3 hours to deliver to that health center, was reduced to 20 minutes. We had 2 drones, again, during that demonstration, that's phase one, 2 drones crossing each other, flying simultaneously with about 3 kilos of product. And that people started realizing like, oh yeah, wait a second, it's not just one truck that goes from point A to point B. You have multiple drones flying simultaneously, and instead of 3 hours, you can probably do 2 trips at most a day. With 20 minutes one way, 40 minutes round trip, you can do like 5, 6, 7 trips per day. We just with one drone, but you can have simultaneous delivery every 15 minutes if you have multiple drones. They started realizing like, okay, that's a lot of weight, that's a lot of material being delivered, all picked up. And they started realizing like that the actual weight capacity, oh, about 3 kilo, that's not enough, that's too small. But again, they were just thinking one drone, one delivery a day. In this case, it's many, 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 many delivery. During that 5 day, we showed that product could be maintained either actively or passively under cold chain, under cold condition, demonstrated the value added of that reverse logistics. We were bringing back report, lab samples, obviously, letters, communication, because those health centers, they don't have cell reception. There's absolutely no way of directly communicating it. You have to rely on physically traveling from one place to another. And in all of a sudden, from one day to another, they have a mean to communicate with Mandaka, which is the provincial level, about anything, privately or not. So the result of this phase one, I want to remind you, was about a year from very start to the end, led to the government, this national and provincial commission gave us the go-ahead for transitioning to the phase two, which is, we are currently in the phase two, which is 12 to 18 months of routine use of drone to serve, to deliver about 70 health centers to 25 landing sites. So I'm going to explain what does that mean exactly. But basically, for this phase two, the objective was to continue strengthen the enabling environment, sustain routine delivery of immunization and other health product, but, and I would say most importantly, generate that hard evidence data to better understand the drone impact on the supply chain cost, performance, and the health impact, as well as developing the business model and the public-private partnership that will be required to sustain beyond this 12, 18-month operation. And so those are some example of accomplishment, but I want something that I have not talked enough about is around the need to really think with the end user in mind. At the end of the day, the drone is just a mode of transportation to ensure that your health workers and therefore their communities have access to the product they need. And therefore, you really need to design your system, and we use a system design approach, with putting yourself in the empathy around the health workers and the communities. You don't want this additional mode of transportation to be a burden on the health workers. You want to adapt to their workflow, to their data flow, to their day-to-day operation. You do not want drone delivery to be a burden on them, an additional task for them to do. This is the map of all the health centers, about 70 health centers with 25 landing sites. Those landing sites were defined, and we have 3 hubs. So we have Mandaka, the main hub. We have 2 secondary hubs who were chosen where there is capacity and cold chain performance in order to act as a secondary warehouse, but most importantly, as charging warehouse. The drone that we use is a superior drone. It's electric. It can only do 120, 130 kilometers with 3 kilo. From top here to bottom here, it's about 500 kilometers. So we needed to design the network in a way where they can swap batteries, and therefore those hubs are where there is reliable energy. We actually install backup generators and solar system. And from those three hubs, those different health centers are health centers where they also have the right capacity in terms of human resources, but also cold chain, because each landing site is serving three additional three additional health center, which is why we reached about 70 health facility. But all this was defined with the local health authorities, with the civil aviation through a system design approach where we really map out the different competencies, the capacities, physical capacities, and so on, to really design your network. And by the way, in the fall, UpDog, VillageReach, and AUVSI will be organizing a 3-day workshop on how to design your drone delivery network. So that's coming up in the fall. You will hear, where we will, during 3 sessions, it will be remote, but 3 hours, we will be doing a system design workshop, with, at the end of the day, is to have transfers that knowledge and that capability of designing your drone delivery network. That's for the fall. And what came out of the phase 2, well, we are currently in phase 2, but so far, after 61 days, we have conducted almost 600 flights using only 3 drones so far. We're supposed to go up to 6. We were a little delayed because of COVID and because of the international travel limitation. We had a hard time getting some assets in countries. They are now finally coming in. But even with 3 drones, we were able to, you see what we've done so far. We're about midway in terms of scale. 26 health facilities, about 200 kilo PPE, vaccine, medicine, and so on, 30,000 vaccine doses, and so on. And I want to show this video. Hopefully it's going to work. So hopefully you can see this.
You're in the same PowerPoint.
Yes. Hold on.
We are in the same presentation. We are not seeing the video.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe we need to switch it to the video.
Can you see a video? Can you see?
Not yet. Hold on. It's changing, I guess. It's in a transition mode. Not yet. The screen is in a transition mode, like.
Okay, let me
show you what I mean. It's like frozen. Yeah.
It's frozen, huh? Okay, let me. How do I get back to?
Maybe you can stop presenting and restart the presentation.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but I don't see my. Oh, here we go. So here. Let me stop presenting, and I'm gonna restart.
Yes, please.
Okay, this is stop presenting. Now I'm restarting.
Yes, please. And you can just restart with the video first.
All right. Can you see?
Yes.
So this is a video that was made by TV5 Monde last month. This is one of the village where we are delivering. Okay. Looks like the bandwidth is not quite right. Yeah, I'm on the right thing. Let me try again. So, all right, let me switch back. I'm almost done, by the way. I just wanted to share one more story. You know,
Olivier, maybe you need to stop presenting and restart the presentation. It's now become like window in a window in a window in a window. Yeah.
all right.
You know, the way you used to have in Windows 95 or something, the window in a
All right. Let me see when you can see my. You can see it?
window. Yes.
All right. I'm going to put it on
Yes.
presentation mode. So, I have to say, we've been now flying for almost 3 months, nonstop, 5 days a week. And it's not easy. You have to be prepared to constantly dealing with challenges. It's part of the game. And for example, here on the picture on the left, one of the village got flooded one day. And so we're scheduled to deliver and we're not able to land, obviously. And so we needed, and we didn't know about it because we don't communicate. There's no mode of communication. So we came up with a couple solutions. First of all, the community themselves built that platform, pretty amazing. And the drone service provider decided to work with a QR code to inform the drone when it is safe, the health worker is there to receive the drone. So for example, if the drone, the health worker is busy taking care of his people, which is what he should be doing, and does not have the time to be out there to receive, secure the perimeter and receive it, well, he's not going to deploy the QR code. So he has to deploy the QR code to indicate to the drone that it is safe to land and he's there to receive it. So if he's not out there, didn't deploy the QR code, the drone is just going to hover for a couple of minutes and then going back. This is the way that we found, that's a solution we found to help with not being able to communicate. Hey, I'm sending this, it's coming. Oh no, I'm not available, I cannot receive it, or it's not safe, or whatever. That's a little solution that we came up with. Also, those, I say, like, so far we have 3 drones, we're gonna have 10, with 6 drones flying non-stop, 6 days a week, 8 to 10 missions a day. Those drones get worn out, especially with having only 3 drones so far. I mean, they get worn out. There is parts that are worn out. We are middle of the African continent, in middle of equator forest, with no reliable power, no cell reception. Well, we have to adapt. We cannot depend on the global supply chain and having parts coming from Australia or from wherever the parts are made. So for a lot of the parts are made in Africa, in Equator Province, in middle of the equatorial forest, through 3D printing. We actually have trained local staff to use 3D printing to print those parts that get the most worn out. I'm not saying that we can build a drone from scratch there, but all the parts that get worn out as you use your drone are produced locally by locals. We are still in phase 2. There are discussion now with government and different authorities to transition and to phase 3 in about 6 months from now, and that include beyond Equatorial Province, so 2 additional provinces that include developing a preparedness emergency response for Ebola, and this drone team to prepare for the next Ebola outbreak, because we know that Ebola is being can be dormant in people's body for up to 5 years. So Ebola will come back. It's a matter of being prepared for it. So now that it's really taking off based on it's feasible, it's can happen safely, and the potential is tremendous beside the very initial use cases that you can think of. But I want to close by saying that, keep in mind, drone delivery is a very, very complex system. And you cannot bypass one sub-element of that system. You have to work at the system level. You have to tackle every single subsystem element. So because of that difficulty, you really have to challenge yourself and ask yourself, what is the true need and challenge am I trying to address? Isn't it an easier way, an easier solution? I mean, I'm a big fan of drone, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that drone is actually the right solution for the need or for the challenges. Is there a more traditional solution transport that is maybe easier, more feasible? And also, once you define the need, what is the appropriate use cases? Really address the root problem. And it's because it's of its multi-sectorial application, it has to be done in partnership with local authorities, with the mind of it's about building the ecosystem, building the learning, transferring those knowledge, involving the different stakeholders and communities to really develop that knowledge, that capabilities will have a huge benefit to the economy of the country or the economy of the region, and so on. The 3D printing was a good example. That's it. And if you want to have access to all those tools, if you want some discussion with people who are on the ground, if you want to visit, you want to connect, please join the UAV for Payload Delivery working group. It's about 350 individual coming together on a regular basis. So the next webinar that we're having is actually in 2 weeks from Zipline. Actually, we're going to be talking with Zipline, having Zipline present around the integration part. How did they integrate and not made a vertical supply chain? And then in the fall, I mentioned this big 3-day workshop on drone delivery network design in partnership with AUVSI, Excel, and different chapter in the US. And we're going to do, in order to be able to connect with people all around the world, we're going to do 2 sessions, one from the west coast of the US, one from the east coast of the US, and so we can accommodate all the different time zones. Thank you. I hope this was helpful, and we are here to provide any additional information that you need as you wish.
Thank you so much, Olivier. This was such an interesting presentation and so engaging. And thank you so much for your generosity and open knowledge sharing. I would welcome any questions or comments that our participants might have. So, Olivier, I have a question for you. Your key challenges in dealing with the government, if you have to talk about, let's say, was it investment? Was it mindset change? Was it modifying the policies? Or was it just bringing people together?
Yeah, there's many challenges, but I think there is one overarching challenge that we face and mitigate every day is the mindset. The mindset of changing the way they think about the supply chain, they think about resupplying, the frequencies of resupplying, the way they plan their procurement, the forecast, the deliveries. All of a sudden, they have access to that very impactful tools, and they want it for everywhere. And we really have to push back on the fact that you don't want to change something that's working, even if it's like, oh, it's sexy, it's great, it's new. I mean, it's a really complex system to be put in place. And so it's helping them understand where it fits the best for what problem they are having. And this mindset of system level change. They see drone delivery just as a technology, and they don't necessarily realize of all the subsystem elements that we need to address in the complexity. And so that system level change is something that we at VillageReach have done over the last 20 years using different solutions for different solutions. But this drone delivery solution is definitely one that really highlights the importance of the system level change mindset that you have to take, which results of dealing with many different agencies. Even though it's a public health project, you have to include transportation, defense, civil aviation. And for the health authorities, it's like, no, it's our project. We don't need them. And so it's really, hold on, remember, we are talking about a system here with regulations, with communities, with telecommunication, with transport, and that's why they're here. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges is to constantly push to remember this is a system level change that we're trying to install.
Thank you, Olivier. And how about, where have you come across cases where people are doing trials and then
just for media attention, for making news, but not really, allowing the whole outcome to really happen. So have you seen like this kind of short-term gains which people try to seek from just boosting
Yeah.
drone trials?
And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of phase one, 1 week, 2 weeks flights, and we see that all over the net and all over LinkedIn and so on. It's great. I mean, it's great, but I can tell you now, even being on a phase two, 12 months routine delivery and so on, if you really want a true impact, you have to scale it. Uh, and that's where the difficulty is. I mean, it's really challenging. I mean, we are reaching the success and the impact that we're having, but it's a constant challenge. It's getting better and better and better, but that's why this phase two and really uh, getting to a routine use of your drone in progressive scale, time and geography is really what's gonna teach you what it really takes, how to be successful, and that's really where you're gonna reach impact. I mean, it's delivering even for our phase one. Like, yes, we did 2,000 kilometer and whatever. I can't even remember how many flights. And yes, we did vaccinate the first set of infants with vaccine delivered by drone. Oh, that's great. But that's the true impact. It's thousands and thousands, 100,000 of people receiving access to the product. And so I have to say that this is really the outcome is really what you should target and emphasize. Um, yeah, it's sexy and so on, but you have to go larger scale, sustainable to truly have impact. And it's not easy. And that's why I try as much as I can to present left and right, to make available those tools, those framework, because I don't want you to go through this to what we went. Why? You'll find other problem. You'll have other challenge. So why going through our challenge? And VillageReach has no benefit. We don't own drone. We are non-for-profit. We are there to help the government, to help the world having access to the health product. And that is why we really are there to really help others to accelerate, leverage what we've done and accelerate their development. Yeah.
Thanks, Oliver. That's amazing. And talking about the overall cost. Now, for example, if you talk about a country like India, which is so vast, would you still advise us to look at drone delivery seriously? Like, should it be for a whole of a country, or should we do it like selectively in pockets?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I mean, India, it's beast. It's a beast on its own. If you allow me for a second to compare with DR Congo, I mean, the Democratic Republic of Congo is also a beast, maybe not as big of India, but it's bigger than Western Europe, right? There's absolutely no way we can think of a national drone delivery system. Absolutely not. And you may have heard that from me, but I have one principle: a small success goes a long way, while a big failure, you don't come back from it. So I would rather have small success, incremental success, progressively scale up, rather than thinking about doing one big and failing, because you won't come back from it. So from India's standpoint, I know there's a lot of things happening in India at the state state or substate level, which I think is definitely the way to go. For example, you won't have one drone service provider in India. You'll have many of them. The scale of it is huge. Even we work in Malawi, which is very, very tiny, but we're still looking at beyond just one drone service provider, because healthy competition. It can be healthy as well. But in scale of DR Congo and India, it's so massive. There is room for trying in different technology, different partner. And one extreme of India is very a different environment than the other extreme of India. Same thing with Congo. From geopolitical difference, from environmental difference, and so on. So I would say just don't think too big, have a vision, but really start small and grow from it. Again, people will be excited, and you'll be much easier to find funding if you have small successes and the funding to help me scale up. You want this to be bigger, help me get there. We are successful at this scale. We think we can be successful at the next scale. But we need the resources, which is, incredibly difficult because of the market failure currently. I've not touched, because I don't think that's really the topic of today, but the market failure that really hinge the investors' rule and the private sector to really invest in this technology is a real problem. It's a real problem that VillageReach is facing, and we're trying to mitigate and to do changes in that regard. But that's another topic of discussion, if you like.
Thanks, Oliver. We have a question. How do you engage with the government and local authorities, example in Congo, where drone regulations are not mandated, and convince them that the use case will be safe and benefit them?
Yeah. So one, and I mentioned it, one way is we brought them to see operation in Ghana, in Rwanda, in Tanzania, or in Malawi, where we are also, in Mozambique, where we are also. So it really helps. Doesn't matter if it's civil aviation or other ministries, Ministry of Transport or Health. It really helped them to see actions, to see what it could look like, and to help them imagine this could happen, how this could be adapted to your environment, right? So we did fundraise for supporting, bringing those authorities representative to see real activities. The second, I would say, the second tip that I would like to share in that regard is really around identifying in a dedicated resource person at that agency who's gonna be working with you on a day-to-day and building that relationship, building that trust, finding that champion. We rely a lot, VillageReach rely a lot on champions. Champions are people in whatever authorities who believe in you, who believe in what you're trying to do, who's gonna be the driving force in that agency. I started the program in DRC. I built my team in country now, and they see their different authorities on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis. They gain the trust, and they identify who is going to make things move forward. And that's not necessarily the highest level person, but it's that person that has the understanding of what it could take, and that passion that's going to transfer that within his agency and within his boss, who is a decision maker. So that champion is critical to work with, to find and work with every step in the way. If you are an implementing partner or a drone service provider, don't think that you can do it without them. At the end of the day, you are doing that for the country, for the governments. They must be in control. They will want to be in control. Let them be part of those decisions. It is their decision to go from phase 1 to phase 2, or to phase 2 to phase 3. It is their decision to approve that route. But how do you make him approve that route? You explain, you take him through the process, or how did we define this flying route? What's the rationale? What's the alternative? And maybe he or she is going to come with an alternative, and then you open to it. You make those decisions together. Maybe, oh, he's proposing a different route or different solution. I'm like, actually, I like your solution better. Let's explore it, right? Or, you know, if you have rationale for explaining, well, we thought about that solution, but no. So you really have to gain that trust and make those, it's a journey you take together. And so find those champions in all those different agencies, and that's your team. That's actually your real team.
Makes perfect sense, Olivier. Thank you. So maybe have some more questions, if any. All right. So thank you so much, Olivier. We can close the session here. And if we have more questions, we will definitely forward them to you. Once again, thank you for being a part of this course. And thank you for your generous and amazing sharing of knowledge. And we really wish you keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll be helpful to you someday.
You're welcome. And that was my pleasure, my honor to be here with you and to working with you, Dr. Ruchi. And I'm available for you guys if you need any clarification or discussion. Please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, or Dr. Ruchi has my my email. Have a good evening. I believe for you it's evening. So have a good evening, everyone.